If you feel something, say something. That's the advice Lyndsay Levingston gives to women, especially Black women. She says she had a village of support that helped her survive breast cancer when she was diagnosed at 36 years old. Later, she would learn that 14 members of her family had faced the same journey. She left the world of media, where she was a successful anchor and television personality, and founded the nonprofit called Survive Her. Let's talk about your breast. A different kind of podcast presented to you by The Rose, a breast center of excellence and a Texas treasure. You're going to hear frank discussions about tough topics, and you're going to learn why knowing about your breast could save your life. Join us as we hear another story and we answer those tough questions that you may have. Well, Lyndsay, you've had a very interesting life. I mean, you were in television, you were an anchor, a reporter, you were a producer, you were behind the scenes, in front of the camera. So tell us a little bit about that life and then how it changed.
So I was born and raised here in Houston, and I graduated from Bel Air High School. After college, after attending the University of North Texas, I returned to Bel Air, taught for 2 years. And while I was teaching, I was volunteering at the City of Houston's Public Access Channel just to get a taste of what journalism would be like. And I fell in love with it, resigned from the classroom at a very young age, and pursued journalism full throttle, working both on air and behind the scenes, as you mentioned, as a producer. And from there, my career took off. I moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma. I worked there as a reporter, and then I stepped out on faith and moved to New York City to work in the top media market, which was such an adventure, huge, probably the largest risk I've taken in my life. Because I said, if I didn't do it at that moment, I would never have done it. And so 9 years later, I built a media career, anchoring, reporting, producing, hosting, wearing every hat under the media umbrella. And then all of that changed.
So tell us about this. I know that you were diagnosed with breast cancer. How did that come about?
So during the summer of July 2019, while taking a shower, I felt a lump in my right breast. And I thought maybe it was a cyst, or maybe I needed to change my bra, or maybe something was happening hormonally. I had no idea what was going on. So I immediately scheduled a well woman exam. And it was during that well woman exam that my OB-GYN ordered my very first mammogram at the age of 37. And that mammogram turned into a series of exams and tests, 3D mammogram, breast ultrasound, and a biopsy of that lump. And that biopsy confirmed that it was a cancerous lump in my right breast. And I was diagnosed with triple negative stage 2B breast cancer.
And triple negative is nothing you really have to get on top of it very quickly. So in many ways, you finding it and going right in was very important to your survivalship. I mean, it's just one of those more aggressive cancers.
Oh, there was a roller coaster of emotions, Dorothy, because I had no knowledge, really. Then the rudimentary knowledge of breast cancer. I had no idea what it meant, what that meant for me. Very much so shocked, because at this point, I had no idea that I had a family history of breast cancer. So shock, worry, fear, unknown. What was going to happen? Because of course, what we think of breast cancer, at least what I thought, was I could die. Mm-hmm. We think of it as our grandmother's disease, one that is fatal. But I couldn't sulk too long, but as you mentioned, because it is triple negative is an aggressive subtype, I had to take action. So I relocated from New York City back home to Houston to start treatment. And I returned home to Houston because this is where I'm from. I would have a village of support, which is very important, as I learned throughout my journey, and boarded a fast-moving train to breast cancer survivorship, breast cancer remission.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that you said was at that time you didn't know you had a family history. how long was it before you discovered that you did?
So I was midway through my chemo journey when I discovered that a cousin on my dad's side of the family was diagnosed at the age of 29 with breast cancer. And when the cousin found out about my diagnosis, she said, Lyndsay, you know, this is very common among female women on our paternal side. She said, you will now be you're the 14th female Levingston to have been diagnosed. How did I not know this?
I don't know.
Well,
how? This
you know,
is 14?
I was 14, the 14th female Levingston. And so not only did I learn about my diagnosis, then I learned about this BRCA1 gene mutation status because I was genetically tested. And so part of my messaging as I'm talking to women is to know your genetic status, because I didn't know it. But because I wasn't that close with the paternal side of my family and no one was talking about it. But that's another story, Dorothy. But know your genetic status.
But no, I think that is part of the story. We don't talk about it enough. We didn't talk about it enough. Mm-hmm. And I cannot tell you the number of women who, once they're diagnosed, find out, just like you did, there was cancer in their family. They didn't have any idea. So the good thing about our rule now is that we can talk about it. You know, when we started the Rose, you couldn't say breast on TV. You could, you know, it was like, oh, you can't even talk about. I could say mammograms, but I couldn't get into.
Couldn't say the B word.
Yeah,
that B word.
Yeah. So what a big change, and for you to leave the world of media and all that excitement and glamour and now to be facing this, what else changed in your life then?
So much changed. So I will say there was a blessing in my breast cancer diagnosis for many reasons. So as I mentioned, I was living in New York, working a very fast-paced media life. And I do think it was God saying you need to slow down. It also really forced me to reevaluate relationships at the time I was married. And so I didn't have the spousal support. So breast cancer gave me the power to file for divorce. I also was able to spend more time with my mom and get really close with her during my journey. She was my, I don't say caregiver, my love giver. COVID happened after my 15 rounds of chemotherapy, bilateral breast mastectomy, breast reconstruction, removal of fallopian tubes and ovaries. COVID happened. And so I had a moment to really sit still and really think about what was I going to do with my media background and now this newfound status as a breast cancer survivor. And that's when I gave birth to Survive Her. So there, again, so many blessings in this diagnosis for me personally.
Mm-hmm. And we hear that. We do. It is like it gives you the power of choice, because
the power of choice and just rethinking how I was going to live this second chance for which, I did not want to take for granted.
Now, you just slipped right over, so that's when Survive Her came in. So tell us, did it just come to you in a thought, a vision, a dream? How did you envision all that?
Combination. So during that COVID time when we were all in stillness, we didn't have a choice, really, just sitting at home. I was meditating and praying, and a lot of people were leveraging the power of social media. So what was a very tiny idea is I was going to start an Instagram live series where I would interview breast cancer survivors. I reached out to Robin Roberts and Hoda Kotb, and I was going to, continue that media work and leverage my network that I built in New York City. And a friend of mine and I were working on a business plan for what this organization, what is really was a business, just for a media business. And it transitioned into something with purpose where I could share all of the information I learned with women who look like me and other women who had no idea what breast cancer meant, who had no idea about genetic testing or bilateral mastectomy and all of this terminology that was poured into me over a 10-month span. And so I was creating the mission statement, and I said, well, I want to inform, I want to inspire, and I want to empower. And then I gave birth to it. And over the next few months, it then transitioned into a nonprofit entity because I wanted to raise money to help women as I learned about organizations like the Rose, where I could do something to help women to pay for mammography and preventative exams that I know could make a difference in their life, their lifespan, and their prognosis.
The one thing that we've seen over these last few years is that in our Black community, women are being diagnosed younger, and this is quite a difficult time to be talking about you need to go get your mammogram. Like you, 37, when we still have this recommendation, oh, well, don't start your mammograms till 40. And what we have found, Lyndsay, is that so many of our younger women, you know, it becomes a diagnostic exam any way you go. And so now they're facing a huge deductible, or they just flat, if they're uninsured, like so many of our patients, they don't have the money for that. Right. So, of course, that is another part of your message about young women can be diagnosed. And I've heard you talk about that. How do you stress that?
Well, I use my personal experience as an example. Women are not diagnosed 40 and up, but women, especially women of color, are diagnosed younger, and women of color also dying at a higher rate because of a lack of access to health care, putting off that critical mammogram, that preventative exam. There's so many factors. But I just stress to women that now is the time, no matter what age. I met a young woman last summer who was diagnosed at the age of 19, a Black woman. So now is the time to just start self-exams and advocating for mammograms if you know you have a family history of breast cancer and or cancer in your family. Mm-hmm.
And, of course, anytime you find something that has changed.
If you feel
unusual.
Right? So, living in New York City, they say if you see something, NYPD said if you see something, say something on the subway. So my message is if you feel something, say something. So I felt something in my right breast, and I called my OB-GYN to schedule a well woman exam.
I love that. Say that again.
If you feel something, say something. If you feel something in your breast that's abnormal, call your doctor to schedule an exam. If you are under the age of 40, advocate for that mammogram. And I know there may be challenges, Dorothy, and I'm sure you've heard these stories too with your patients. There may be challenges to get that mammogram approved through your insurance, but just keep speaking up for yourself, because it really can be a matter of life or death.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And how do you challenge that? I mean, I know you didn't really have to, I don't think.
I didn't have to challenge it because my OB-GYN, she felt the lump, she saw the scans, and she knew that it needed attention, immediate attention.
Right.
And then sent me to the radiologist, and that was so many appointments thereafter.
Oh, I know. But when you're talking to women, do you have a method, or do you say this is what you need to ask your doctor, or how do you encourage? Because that's very hard, Lyndsay. It's very hard for a woman to challenge, if the doctor says you're too young for breast cancer, you're too young for a mammogram. What do you say back to them?
Well, I would say go to another doctor. I've shared this with several women who have come to me just within the past few months who have experienced challenges with their medical providers. And so I'd recommend that they go to a second and third doctor and keep pushing until you can get that exam.
That's right. That is so important.
There are also, community health providers that have open arms, or extend their arm, I should say embrace those who may not have insurance, seeking your community health providers, even looking into churches that support women and have healthcare programs and or access. There are so many resources out there. So there really is no excuse. There's no excuse.
we need to tell them they do have that power. They do have.
They
that
have the power.
choice.
If you don't have insurance, you have the Rose, and there are community partners, and that I'm sure the Rose can point women to, in the direction of to various community partners. But there's no excuse. There's no excuse for a woman to lose her life because she cannot afford a mammogram or can't get to an appointment. There's so many resources, but you have to speak up for yourself. You have to speak up on behalf of your family, because if the woman's not well, the family's not well, her household's not well.
Now let's go to Survive Her.
This was my calling. As I mentioned, my blessing in breast cancer, Survive Her, is my purpose. It wasn't being on the news. It wasn't being an anchor. It wasn't working the red carpet, although that was really fun and glamorous. It's serving women through Survive Her. Our mission is to inform, inspire, and to empower women, survivors, and a community of supporters around breast cancer awareness and wellness beyond the month of October. So we are driven and fueled to serve year-round, because I was diagnosed in July, not in October, although we know breast cancer awareness gets the pink spotlight in October. Women are affected year-round, right, Dorothy?
Oh, yes.
So there are 3 buckets, I guess, through which we serve, one of which is through our financial support. So we have our Survive Her Strong program, through which we support 2 women from diagnosis through completion of her treatment with financial support, whether maybe she needs support getting transportation to and from her appointments, support with co-pays, groceries, utilities, whatever it is she needs. We have stipends for the Survivor Strong. We have a holiday program, Survive Her Santa, through which we bless breast cancer survivors with stipends to do whatever it is they want to do for themselves. We also, very proud of this, we also raise money to pay for mammograms. And the Rose is one of our recipients of our fundraising efforts.
We certainly are, and we so appreciate that. That just gives us such flexibility when we have gifts like that, and we know that they're for a specific purpose, that we can just move forward and help that many more women. But that is very, very important. I know when you're talking about the help, the financial help, I remember one story you even helped with finding a washer dryer for a young family, 3 children, mother's not working.
So you met her, Dorothy, at our Survive Her soiree. She's one of our Survive Her Strong recipients. So the resources could look like anything. It's really, what does this woman need as she's going through treatment? What will help her at home? What will help her fight the fight successfully? And so for this particular single mother of 3 boys, her family was in need of a washer and dryer. And so we partnered with another organization and matched funds so that she can get that washer and dryer before she started or before her bilateral mastectomy. Because, of course, she wouldn't have the physical capability, to go to a laundromat. She needed that resource in her home. She needed that utility in her home.
I think that's what I love about Survive Her Strong. And it really hits not home, but it really assists women with those things that we don't even think about.
Never would have thought, right?
No, and that is so important. I could imagine her trying to get to a washateria with 3 boys. No. And
having just had her breast cut off. If you really want to talk about it like that, right? We have to be realistic, but you never know what women need, and I'm learning so much. So those are our financial support. That's our financial support component. And then we have a really strong community partnership component through which we partner with Houston Methodist Sugarland Breast Cancer Center. We partner with the Texas Southern University Breast Cancer Screening and Prevention Center, for which I sit on the advisory board. We host social events, fundraisers, happy hour events, but there's always an educational component, whether we bring in a medical provider to present information, risks, symptoms, to talk about self-breast exams. There's always an educational component. And then our big event in the fall, the Survive Her soiree, which is our signature fundraiser. at which we honor Survive Her champions. Dorothy Gibbons was our Survive Her champion honoree last year.
It was a wonderful event.
And thank you for being there and just saying yes. But for the work that you do, I think it's important that we shine a spotlight on those persons who are committed to breast cancer advocacy work, some of which sometimes may go unnoticed. But I thought that was important that we not only salute our providers, our healthcare providers, but we salute those who are behind the scenes making things happen for the women who need resources.
That was a very special recognition, believe me. And I hadn't thought about it like you were describing. We sometimes forget the folks in the background that are true champions that let us do these things. I mean, I can think of physicians that come to mind, other organizations that have helped us so much. So, yeah, you're right. Recognizing those champions is good, too.
You're all part of this circle of life for breast cancer patients and survivors, too. We're all included. So it was just in my heart to extend that public thank you.
Oh, it was
to
wonderful.
Champions like you.
It was so wonderful. And, of course, getting to meet one of the women that we had diagnosed.
Oh, my gosh. That photo of you embracing her is one of my favorite moments from that evening, Dorothy.
It was so wonderful.
So for those of you who don't know, our Survive Her Strong recipient was diagnosed, I think, in 2022, but she got her mammogram at the Rose. Well, let me rewind. Let me tell you the real story. She went to a hospital, and I can't remember the name of it. She went to a hospital, and they turned her away because she was not 40. And a friend of hers at work told her about the Rose. She came to the Rose and got her mammogram. And then the Rose, thanks to the Rose, helped her to navigate to, she's at Texas Oncology where she's being treated. That's where I was treated as well. And so to see that moment, that full circle moment come together. So Dorothy is here at the soiree being honored. We're also recognizing breast cancer survivors, and our Survive Her Strong, recipient is also a patient of the Rose. It was just a beautiful moment. And to see that how our work is impacting the lives of women, Dorothy.
Just hand in hand.
Hand in hand.
Yes, so important. Oh, and when you're talking about that support network that every woman needs, but especially at this time when she's going through something as scary and as physically, it takes a lot physically to go through the chemo or the radiation or the surgery. And I'm so impressed with the way you have people for those women to talk to. You have people that are ready and willing to help, and that's a lot. That means so much.
I consider myself to be a vessel, and my prayer is always that God will use me to help women and to serve. So this, it's a lot of work, but it doesn't feel like work. It's my ministry.
So you never have had a time when you were a little down or that you wondered how you were going to help the next person, or?
Yes, I have those moments. And what's really interesting, and I know this is how God works, I may be down on a Saturday, and then Sunday at church, a member of our church who I have never met will walk up to me and say, I've heard about your organization. I see the work. Keep it up. We appreciate you. And so those moments, those touch points really fuel me and keep me going. Mm-hmm. But yes, I'm always, my brain is always just thinking, how can I help the next woman? And what can I do? How can I raise money? Now I'm really more focused this year on grants because I know there's so much money out there for nonprofits, for research, for outreach, for public health. And so I want to tap more into that this year.
Yes. And survivorship has finally gotten the attention of so many of the grant makers. It used to be, why is that important?
It's so important.
Oh, yes.
Survivorship, if it's not more important than actually going through breast cancer, is just as hard. Mm-hmm. Because people think when you ring the bell, it's over. No, my survivorship is so important. I'm under surveillance. There's fear of recurrence. There's so much that I have to do now in managing breast cancer survivorship. As a BRCA1 gene mutation carrier who's in medically induced menopause, oh, honey, Oh, that's another hour, Dorothy, of conversation.
True. So what is the most special award event that Survive Her has had?
When we're able to impact women and reduce the level of fear of getting a mammogram or a breast exam, and to empower them to really own their breast health and their wellness, that's when I know that we're doing the right thing.
Oh, absolutely.
That's one of the moments that stands out.
And there is so much that has yet to be discovered, has yet to be tried, and that's what's so exciting about this time. It's really a time of new thinking, new ideas, and I am so encouraged by what I hear from women saying, I want to know more. I want to know why. I want to know how we can get this changed, and I want to help my community, and that's a lot of what you've been doing.
Community is priority because I can see the need, but I also really enjoy just educating. And you'd be surprised how many people, women and men, just don't know the nuances of breast cancer and all that it encompasses. And then I'm still learning myself as a breast cancer survivor.
Absolutely.
But it just feels it's so fulfilling to teach and educate and empower. And to your point, it's so exciting at the same time just to learn about all of the new advancements in research and technology and to share that information with communities.
And, we all hope that someday there's a cure.
That's my prayer every morning.
But I will tell you, until we have that, we can't educate enough. We cannot keep pounding it in. You've got to get a mammogram. You've got to take care of yourself. That's the whole thing. Women, doesn't matter where they're from, they just don't take care of themselves like we should.
Right.
And, that's been our message from the beginning. If you don't take care of yourself, then you can't take care of anyone else.
That's exactly right.
So if you had your wildest dream for Survive Her, wildest dream, what would it be?
Well, I will share my vision for Survive Her is to
okay.
become the global advocate for breast cancer awareness for communities of color and beyond. And I manifest that in a few years, Survive Her, we're on the road. We're traveling around the world, impacting women. I also see millions of dollars pouring into our organization so that we could help millions of women. But it's definitely global. Global is my part of my vision. I just learned yesterday, as I finished my 5K running for Survive Her, raising money, I learned that there is a significant need in Accra, Ghana. Women who line up at there's a breast cancer hospital there, and they line up with such dire need, and it's really hard to articulate, but there is a need for prosthetic bras. There is a need for treatment, but they line up, Dorothy, with breasts that have been cancerous for years, which is very astounding to me that they're able to even live. After I saw some photos yesterday that were just really, really mind-blowing, but there's such a need in Ghana. There's a need in Nassau, Bahamas, and some third world countries and overseas. So I don't see Survivor just stopping here in the States, but expanding our arms, our reach, our tentacles around the world.
We worked with some countries that it's never found early. The whole focus is how do we help this woman with metastatic disease?
Right.
And when I first heard that, I was like, wait, how can this be? But you're absolutely right. There is such lack of education and services. So good luck to you. That's exactly what we need. We need you global. We need you. Are you national already? Are you helping?
We're national. Although we're based in Houston, but we're national.
So anyone could come to you for a
Absolutely.
need or...
We our past Survive Her Santa recipients, many of them were in Atlanta. We also host a major event in New York because I was since I lived in New York, I do feel like that's a second home. and we partner with an organization there called AfroPink. And we host a huge breast cancer awareness block party in the fall. So this year we'll be in Harlem, just a few blocks down from the Apollo Theater. And we will partner with New York Presbyterian Hospital, and the New York Black MBA Association is one of our sponsors, Victoria's Secret. So it's going to be a huge, huge event.
Oh, my gosh.
And the idea is just, so the theme is it's mammos and genetic testing matter. And we're passing out free genetic tests. We have a mammogram van that's pulling up, and women can walk on that van and get mammograms. So it's part of our work.
Oh, how exciting.
But we're everywhere. So every month I always try to think which other communities outside of Houston can we reach and touch and support.
That is so good to hear. My goodness, everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah. So how can we support Survive Her? What can people do?
So we of course appreciate every dollar counts, because it will go to, when you pour into Survive Her, we can pour into organizations like The Rose. We can support those single mothers with 3 kids who need a washer dryer, or perhaps she needs groceries. Because I've also found out, Dorothy, that a mammogram is about $250 out of pocket. For some women, that could mean keeping the lights on.
Oh, absolutely.
Buying groceries, getting to work. And so we don't want that to be a barrier, but we accept funds. And as I mentioned, we really are doing a little bit more digging this year to tap into grant funds.
Mm-hmm. So anyone
corporate
that hears,
funds.
Yes, corporate grants.
Funds.
If you know about any of those kind of grants that are available, be sure and let Lyndsay know. I know we find out about grants all the time that we had no idea were out there.
I know.
People really want to help, and there really are organizations that will help, but you've got to know about them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? Knowledge is power.
Yes, it is. Any final words you'd like to share with our listeners?
Well, I'm just so grateful for this platform and for our partnership. When I first learned about The Rose, I was just so excited and excited because as I was learning about breast cancer, I had no idea about all of the various resources, but so excited to know that there's an organization that will not turn a woman away due to her status, her background, her religion. It's open arms. But I will say that as we continue to partner with organizations like The Rose, that we will make a larger impact. But to the listeners, I leave you with this. Survive Her is an organization that is growing and making a significant impact and dent in the community. I must say I'm very proud of what we've accomplished in the past year and a half, almost 2 years of work, and we appreciate any support and help from the community. You can visit us at imasurviveher.org. You can Google Survive Her. We have achieved a lot of dynamic media moments, which also helps to get the word out. And we're also on social media at I'm a Survive Her. So stay tuned. Survive Her. We're on the move.
Great newsletter, great education pieces. I mean, just so much on there. So, yes, you should be very proud, and especially in such a short time.
Thank you.
And thank you for this work that you're doing in our community. You know, it's going to take all of us to get women through, and that's what our job is. That's what we're going to have to do.
And pounding, reinforcing that message. And how do we keep doing that? We just keep doing this, talking about it.
That's it.
Going into the community, pounding the pavement, and just keeping the conversation going.
Well, it's been so much fun to talk with you today, and I'm so happy to know about your organization. And certainly for anyone that needs this, go to Survive Her. You'll find it. It's everywhere. And it's going to be really everywhere in just a few years. Yes.
That's right.
That is just so exciting. Thank you so much for being with us. And I sure hope our listeners heard what Lyndsay had to say. You got to take care of yourself if you want to take care of anyone else. Ask the questions and be your own best advocate. Thank you again, Lyndsay.
Thank you, Dorothy, for this honor.
Thank you for joining us today on Let's Talk About Your Breasts. This podcast is produced by Freddie Cruz Creative Works and brought to you by The Rose. Visit therose.org to learn more about our organization. Subscribe to our podcast, share episodes with friends, and join the conversation on social media using hashtag Let's Talk About Your Breasts. We welcome your feedback and suggestions. Consider supporting The Rose. Your gift can make the difference to a person in need. And remember, self-care is not selfish, it's essential.